If you're someone who has ever questioned the meaning of life, wondered what your true purpose is, or found yourself grappling with existential doubts, then you're in the right place. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most powerful and transformative philosophies of all time, existentialism. You might be thinking, what exactly does existentialism have to do with my life? Why should I care about a philosophy that talks about freedom, responsibility, and the absurdity of existence? Well, let me tell you, this philosophy is not just for philosophers or academics. It's for anyone who has ever felt lost in the chaos of life. It's for anyone who has wondered why they're here, what they should be doing, or how to live authentically in a world that often feels like it's spinning out of control. Existentialism offers a powerful framework for understanding and navigating the complexities of modern life. You see, existentialism is all about freedom, the freedom to define your life, to make choices that reflect your true self, and the responsibility that comes with those choices. It's about embracing the uncertainty and challenges that come with life and finding meaning not from external sources, but from within yourself. It's a journey of self-discovery, one that involves constant questioning, redefining who you are, and challenging the norms and expectations that society places on you. Existentialism teaches us that meaning is not something we find in books or external forces. It's something we must create for ourselves. In today's video, we're going to break down how existentialism, through the ideas of thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus, can help us navigate the confusion and complexity of life. We're going to explore what it means to live authentically, to embrace the absurd, and to take full responsibility for the meaning we create in our lives. Whether you're dealing with anxiety, depression, or simply searching for purpose in the hustle and bustle of modern existence, existentialism offers some of the most profound insights into how to live fully and authentically. But before we jump in, I want to ask you to like, share, and subscribe if you're new here, or if you enjoy content that challenges the norms and pushes you to think deeper. And if you want to take your support to the next level, consider using the Super Thanks feature to help keep the content flowing. Your support means the world to me and helps make videos like this possible. Trust me, you're going to want to stick around for this, because what we're about to dive into is going to challenge the way you think about your life, your choices, and your future. Existentialism, a philosophical movement that emerged in the 20th century, continues to resonate deeply with people today, offering a way to navigate a world that often feels uncertain and chaotic. The central tenet of existentialism is that life does not come with inherent meaning. Rather, meaning must be created through our own choices and actions. This perspective challenges traditional views of life, often rooted in religion or objective truths, by asserting that individuals are free to define their existence. Existentialism, at its core, asks profound questions about human existence, freedom, and the search for meaning in a world that seems indifferent to our struggles. Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus, two of the most influential existentialist philosophers, laid the groundwork for a philosophical revolution that questioned not just religious and social structures, but the very nature of human life itself. Sartre, with his assertion that existence precedes essence, emphasized the radical freedom that comes with being human, while Camus grappled with the absurdity of life itself, suggesting that even in the face of this absurdity, we must find ways to live authentically and with purpose. In Sartre's view, the very act of existence is a form of freedom. He argued that humans are condemned to be free, meaning that while we are free to make our own choices, we are simultaneously burdened by the responsibility that comes with that freedom. For Sartre, there is no predefined human essence or purpose. We are born into the world as blank slates, and it is through our actions and choices that we shape who we are. This creates a radical form of personal responsibility. We are not only responsible for our own actions, but also for the values we choose to live by. This idea of personal responsibility is central to Sartre's existentialism, And it is a challenging concept for many because it means that no one can blame external forces, whether it be society, religion, or culture, for their actions or lack of meaning in life. On the other hand, Camus introduced a different kind of existential question, the question of the absurd. In his famous essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, Camus tells the story of a man condemned to roll a boulder up a hill for eternity, only for it to roll back down again every time he reaches the top. This image of eternal futility encapsulates what Camus described as the absurdity of life, the endless search for meaning in a world that offers none. Yet, Camus did not view the absurd as something to despair over. Instead, he suggested that we must embrace the absurd and revolt against it by living fully, finding meaning in our own actions and experiences, even if those meanings are ultimately temporary and fleeting. Camus' existentialism does not call for resignation to despair, but for a defiant joy in living, despite life's inherent meaninglessness. The appeal of existentialism, particularly as articulated by Sartre and Camus, lies in its insistence on individual freedom and the responsibility that comes with it. In a world that often feels like it is defined by external circumstances, where individuals might feel powerless against the forces of society or the weight of history, existentialism offers a perspective that places control back in the hands of the individual. Sartre's idea of radical freedom means that no matter the circumstances, we have the ability to choose our responses, our actions, and the meaning we give to our lives. This idea is particularly relevant today, in a world where many feel overwhelmed by the complexity of modern life, where people search for meaning in careers, relationships, and personal achievements, yet often feel unfulfilled. Take, for example, the modern issue of career dissatisfaction. Many people today find themselves in jobs that do not bring them joy or fulfillment, often driven by societal expectations or financial necessity. For these individuals, Sartre's concept of freedom can be liberating. The realization that they are not bound by an external essence, that they can redefine their purpose and values through their own choices, can provide a sense of empowerment. A person stuck in an unfulfilling job, for instance, might realize that they are not obligated to remain there forever, and through making a conscious choice to change their path, they can assert their freedom and create new meaning for themselves. Similarly, the concept of the absurd in Camus' philosophy offers a different but equally profound approach to understanding the human condition. Imagine someone grappling with the deep existential crisis of a life that seems devoid of meaning, especially in a world that often feels overwhelming and indifferent. For this person, Camus' message is one of rebellion, not against an external force, but against the very nature of existence itself. In the face of life's absurdity, the individual can still find meaning by embracing the present moment, finding joy in the experiences of life, and living authentically. Camus does not offer a solution in the traditional sense. Instead, he suggests that the way to deal with life's absurdity is to live fully, to engage with life in all its imperfections, and to create meaning despite the inherent lack of it. This tension between Sartre's emphasis on freedom and Camus' focus on the absurd highlights the core of existentialist thought. It is not about finding universal answers to life's questions, but rather about embracing the uncertainty and freedom that come with being human. Existentialism challenges us to take responsibility for our lives and to find meaning in a world that offers none by default. It encourages us to live authentically, to confront the reality of our existence, and to shape our own destiny. In many ways, existentialism provides a philosophical framework for navigating modern life, where people often feel disconnected from traditional sources of meaning, such as religion or societal norms. In an age where individuals are increasingly faced with complex decisions about identity, purpose, and freedom, existentialism provides an empowering yet daunting perspective. We must create meaning for ourselves, and we must live with the consequences of those choices. Take the example of modern relationships. Many people today find themselves questioning the purpose of romantic partnerships, often feeling the pressure of societal expectations to conform to a certain ideal of love and partnership. Sartre's existentialism would suggest that each individual must confront their own beliefs about love and relationships and determine their own path, rather than simply following societal scripts. This can lead to a deeper sense of personal fulfillment, as individuals choose partners not based on external validation, but because they genuinely connect with them on their own terms. Camus, on the other hand, would suggest that even if love is fleeting or inevitably filled with moments of absurdity, such as the inevitable challenges and separations that accompany human relationships, there is still beauty in the meaning to be found in the experience itself. Ultimately, existentialism offers a way to confront the anxiety and uncertainty that comes with the awareness of life's inherent meaninglessness. It calls on individuals to not shy away from their freedom and responsibility, but to embrace it fully. Sartre and Camus may have provided different philosophical lenses through which to view this challenge, but both emphasize the importance of living authentically and finding meaning through individual action and choice. In a world that often feels unpredictable and full of despair, existentialism provides a powerful reminder that we are not simply passive participants in life's narrative, but active creators of our own story. By confronting the absurdity of existence and embracing the responsibility of freedom, we can find meaning in even the most chaotic moments of our lives. Through this lens, existentialism remains a potent and relevant philosophy for the modern world, offering individuals the tools they need to navigate the complexities of contemporary life and find purpose in the face of life's uncertainties. Existentialism, as a philosophical movement, emerged out of a tumultuous period in history, shaped in large part by the devastation and upheaval of World War II. The horrors of war left a profound mark on the collective consciousness of the time, creating an environment in which traditional systems of thought, those based on objective truths, religious dogma, and societal norms began to lose their credibility. People, faced with the brutality of global conflict, turned inward, questioning the meaning and purpose of existence itself. The global devastation led many to search for a new way to understand their place in a world that seemed increasingly absurd and indifferent to human suffering. This was the fertile ground from which existentialism would emerge, challenging long-established beliefs and offering a new perspective on freedom, responsibility, and the nature of human existence. The roots of existentialism can be traced back to a series of thinkers who laid the groundwork for the movement long before Sartre and Camus became its most prominent figures. These earlier philosophers, such as Soren Kierkegaard, Friedrich Nietzsche, and Martin Heidegger, explored themes of individual freedom, responsibility, and the meaning of life ideas that would later be fully developed and articulated by existentialists in the 20th century. Each of these philosophers contributed in their own way to the core ideas that would become central to existentialism, offering insight into the human condition that would resonate deeply with Sartre, Camus, and their contemporaries. Soren Kierkegaard, often regarded as the father of existentialism, was one of the first philosophers to emphasize the importance of individual experience and subjectivity. Living in 19th century Denmark, Kierkegaard grappled with the tension between faith and reason, and his work focused on the individual's struggle to find meaning in a world that could not offer certainty. His most famous idea, the leap of faith, suggests that human beings must take a leap beyond reason and embrace faith in order to find meaning in life. Kierkegaard's existentialism was rooted in the belief that individuals are responsible for their own existence and must confront the anxieties and contradictions of life head-on. This focus on the individual's internal struggles and the need to make a personal, subjective commitment to life would later influence existentialist thinkers, including Sartre, who would echo Kierkegaard's emphasis on the importance of personal choice in defining one's essence. Friedrich Nietzsche, another precursor to existentialism, is perhaps best known for his declaration that God is dead, a statement that encapsulates the profound shift in Western thought during the modern era. Nietzsche's ideas about the will to power and the Übermensch, or Superman, challenge traditional morality and religious beliefs, advocating for the creation of new values that were grounded in individual strength and self-affirmation. Nietzsche's critique of conventional morality, which he saw as life-denying and rooted in weakness, resonated deeply with existentialist themes of individual freedom and self-creation. In many ways, Nietzsche set the stage for Sartre's philosophy of radical freedom by rejecting the idea of a fixed human nature and promoting the idea that individuals must create their own values in an indifferent and often hostile world. His concept of the eternal recurrence, the idea that life might repeat itself eternally, was also influential in existentialist thought, challenging individuals to live their lives as if they would have to live them over and over again. Martin Heidegger, another critical figure in the development of existentialism, took a more ontological approach to the question of human existence. Heidegger's work focused on the concept of being, which he believed had been neglected by traditional philosophy. For Heidegger, the fundamental question of philosophy was not about specific objects or ideas, but about the nature of existence itself, what it means to be. He argued that human beings are fundamentally defined by their awareness of their own mortality, which gives rise to anxiety and the need to confront the meaning of life. Heidegger's emphasis on being toward death influenced Sartre's later work, particularly his focus on human freedom and responsibility. Heidegger's exploration of authenticity, which he described as living in accordance with one's true self rather than conforming to societal expectations, also resonated with existentialist themes of individual freedom and personal responsibility. As these thinkers laid the philosophical groundwork, the historical context of the 20th century played a crucial role in the rise of existentialism. World War II, with its unparalleled destruction and human suffering, created a backdrop that made existentialist ideas particularly compelling. The war shattered many people's faith in the traditional structures of society and religion, and existentialism provided a philosophical framework for making sense of a world in chaos. The horrors of the Holocaust, the devastation of entire cities, and the sheer randomness of violence and death forced many to confront the fragility of human existence and the meaninglessness that can arise when life is reduced to mere survival. In the aftermath of the war, existentialist thinkers like Sartre and Camus became influential voices, offering their own interpretations of human existence in a world that seemed indifferent to suffering. Sartre's philosophy of existentialism emphasized the radical freedom of the individual and the responsibility that comes with it. According to Sartre, existence precedes essence, meaning that individuals are not born with a predetermined purpose, but must create their own meaning through their choices and actions. This idea was a direct response to the existential crisis created by the war. As people began to question the validity of traditional values and the meaning of life in a world that had been so violently torn apart. Camus, meanwhile, focused on the concept of the absurd, the recognition that life is inherently meaningless and that the search for meaning in a universe that offers none is a futile endeavor. In works like The Myth of Sisyphus, Camus explored how individuals might live authentically and with dignity in the face of the absurd. For Camus, the key to living a meaningful life in an absurd world was to accept the absurdity of existence and to find joy and meaning in the act of rebellion against it. This was a radical departure from traditional religious or philosophical notions of meaning, offering instead a perspective that embraced life's chaos and uncertainty while still asserting the possibility of personal freedom and meaning. The rise of existentialism, then, was not just a philosophical development, but a response to the intellectual and emotional aftermath of war. It was a movement that sought to make sense of a world in which traditional sources of meaning, be they religious, moral, or social, had been stripped away by the violence and destruction of war. In this context, existentialism offered a new way of thinking about human existence, one that emphasized the individual's responsibility to create meaning in a world that could offer none by default. The historical context of existentialism's rise during and after World War II makes it clear that the movement was not merely an academic exercise, but a deeply relevant response to the challenges and traumas of its time. Existentialist ideas provided a way for individuals to confront the uncertainties of modern life, to take ownership of their existence, and to find meaning in a world that often seemed devoid of it. The philosophical innovations of Kierkegaard, Nietzsche, Heidegger, Sartre, and Camus offered a radical rethinking of human existence, one that continues to influence contemporary thought and culture today. The existentialist legacy, then, is a legacy of freedom to choose, to create, and to live authentically in the face of life's inherent meaninglessness. It is a legacy that empowers individuals to take responsibility for their own lives and to find meaning in the act of living itself, regardless of the external forces that might seek to define or constrain them. In the face of a world that often seems indifferent to human suffering, existentialism offers a path forward, a way to confront the chaos of existence with courage, dignity, and a commitment to personal freedom. Sartre's philosophy centers on the concept that existence precedes essence, a radical and liberating idea that forms the foundation of his existentialism. This phrase captures a core truth about human nature. We are not born with a predefined purpose, and it is through our actions, choices, and personal responsibility that we define who we are. Unlike many traditional philosophies, which often assert that individuals are born with an inherent essence or predetermined nature, be it religious, social, or biological, Sartre rejected this notion, believing that individuals have no fixed essence or purpose at birth. Rather, existence itself comes first. We are born into the world, and it is only through living that we shape our essence, our values, our beliefs, and the meaning of our lives. The implication of this idea is profound. We are responsible for creating ourselves, for constructing meaning in our lives rather than inheriting it from an external force. This existential freedom is both a blessing and a burden, as it requires individuals to constantly make choices about who they will become. The idea that existence precedes essence directly challenges traditional views rooted in religious or societal frameworks that assert that our purpose is determined by an external higher power or predefined nature. In such a worldview, individuals are often expected to conform to prescribed roles, whether that's a moral code, a social identity, or a divine plan. Sartre, on the other hand, insisted that we are free to define our essence through our actions. There is no universal blueprint for what it means to be human. Each person must determine their own path. For instance, think of someone deciding what career to pursue. Traditional views might suggest that a person's career is determined by their inherent talents, social status, or family expectations. In contrast, Sartre would argue that the individual is free to choose their career, independent of external influences, and through this choice, they are actively constructing their identity. By choosing to become a doctor, artist, teacher, entrepreneur, the person is not merely fulfilling a preordained role, but is creating their essence through their own decisions. Sartre's claim is that we are not born with a purpose to fulfill, but we must continually make choices and take responsibility for the life we build. This existential freedom, however, comes with a significant burden. Sartre emphasized that this freedom is absolute. We are free to choose, and in doing so, we are fully responsible for the consequences of our actions. The burden of freedom lies in the weight of responsibility it places on the individual. If we are free to create our own values and identity, then we are entirely accountable for those choices. There is no external force or higher power to blame if we fail to live up to our potential or make choices we later regret. For Sartre, this responsibility is unavoidable because we are free to define our essence. We must also bear the full weight of the responsibility for the lives we create. Consider the example of a person who chooses to pursue a career in a field that is financially lucrative but unfulfilling. The individual might initially feel content with the success and financial stability that the job brings, but over time, a sense of emptiness might emerge. The person begins to question the meaning of their work and their life choices. According to Sartre, the individual cannot blame society, their family, or their education for their dissatisfaction. They are solely responsible for their decision to pursue this career path. The existential burden, then, is that the individual must confront the fact that they are the architect of their own life. And thus, they are fully responsible for the choices they make even when those choices lead to regret or despair. This brings us to one of the most important and complex concepts in Sartre's philosophy: bad faith. Bad faith refers to the act of self-deception or lying to oneself in order to avoid the anxiety that comes with confronting the responsibility of freedom. It is a form of self-denial in which an individual refuses to accept the full weight of their freedom and responsibility. Instead of acknowledging their freedom to choose and the responsibility for those choices, the individual convinces themselves that they are bound by external forces, whether that be societal expectations, the roles they play, or the demands of others. In other words, bad faith is a way of escaping the discomfort that comes with existential freedom. It is the act of pretending that we are not free, that we are not responsible for our choices, or that we are simply following a script that was handed to us. Sartre uses the example of a waiter who performs his duties mechanically, acting as if his entire existence is solely defined by the role of being a waiter. Instead of recognizing that he has the freedom to make choices about his life, the waiter falls into bad faith by limiting himself to a predefined role, thus denying his own freedom and responsibility. The waiter might think, "I am just a waiter. This is who I am." But this belief in a fixed identity denies the fact that the individual could choose to become something else, could decide to change their path, and could shape their essence through different actions. Another example of bad faith can be seen in the way some people remain stuck in unhealthy relationships. A person might stay in a relationship because they feel they have no other choice, or because society expects them to maintain the relationship, even when it brings them misery. Instead of recognizing that they are free to leave the relationship and take responsibility for their own happiness, they deceive themselves into thinking they have no agency or freedom. They justify staying with a partner by pointing to external factors, financial concerns, social pressure, or a fear of loneliness rather than acknowledging their ability to make different choices. Sartre argues that bad faith is one of the most common ways people escape the responsibility that comes with existential freedom. By living in bad faith, individuals avoid the anxiety and fear that come with recognizing that they are free to choose and that they are responsible for the choices they make. Bad faith allows individuals to hide from the existential reality that they are not predetermined by external forces, but rather must actively shape their own existence. Sartre's philosophy presents a challenge to modern life, especially in a society that often encourages conformity and provides individuals with prescribed roles to follow. People are constantly bombarded with societal norms and expectations, and it is easy to fall into the trap of bad faith by following these norms without ever questioning them. For instance, many people enter careers because their parents or society expect them to, without considering if it aligns with their true desires or values. Sartre would argue that by doing so, they're falling into bad faith by avoiding their freedom and the responsibility of choosing a path that truly reflects their authentic self. The importance of Sartre's ideas about bad faith lies in the fact that they urge individuals to confront their true freedom and to take responsibility for their choices. Sartre believes that we must be aware of the fact that we are always free to choose, and that by doing so, we can live a more authentic and meaningful life. The challenge, then, is not just to acknowledge our freedom, but to actively embrace it and make choices that reflect our true desires and values. Even when it means stepping outside of the roles that society has set for us. Living authentically, for Sartre, means rejecting bad faith and confronting the reality of our existential freedom. It is about accepting the responsibility for our choices and understanding that we are the creators of our own essence. When we live authentically, we acknowledge that there is no external force that defines us, and we take ownership of the lives we create. This is not an easy task, as it requires individuals to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves and the world around them. But for Sartre, it is only through this confrontation with freedom and responsibility that individuals can live truly fulfilling lives. In conclusion, Sartre's philosophy is centered on the idea that existence precedes essence, that individuals are free to define their own purpose and meaning in life, and that with this freedom comes the heavy responsibility of choice. The burden of freedom is both liberating and daunting, as it forces us to confront the reality that we are solely responsible for the lives we lead. In order to avoid falling into bad faith, we must acknowledge our freedom, embrace our responsibility, and make choices that align with our authentic selves. Only by doing so can we live a life that is truly meaningful and reflective of our own desires and values. Albert Camus' philosophy of absurdism begins with the realization that life, at its core, is meaningless. The universe offers no inherent purpose or significance, and yet human beings, in their search for meaning, are constantly striving to impose order and reason on an indifferent world. This fundamental disconnection between our desire for meaning and the universe's indifference to it is what Camus refers to as the absurd. To him, the absurd arises from the human condition itself, as we are always seeking answers, seeking purpose, and trying to make sense of a universe that is quite simply devoid of meaning. The absurdity of life is not a new idea. It has been discussed in various philosophical and literary traditions throughout history. However, Camus provides a unique interpretation that highlights the tension between human beings' need for meaning and the stark reality of the universe's indifference. Camus argues that this tension, the struggle to find meaning in a world that offers none, is the essence of the absurd. The more we search for meaning, the more we are confronted with the meaninglessness of existence. This creates a paradox. The human being is compelled to find meaning, yet the universe refuses to provide it. To understand Camus' absurdism, consider the example of someone waking up each day to perform the same routine, go to work, dealing with daily chores, fulfilling obligations. For most of us, this repetition becomes so ingrained in our lives that we rarely stop to question its purpose. Yet, when we do, the question arises, why are we doing all of this? Why do we work? Why do we go through the motions of life? Camus suggests that if we take a moment to step back and honestly evaluate our existence, we come face to face with the absurd. The tasks we perform every day, the goals we set, the dreams we chase, none of it ultimately matters. There is no grand design to our existence, no cosmic purpose that makes it all worthwhile. This is the absurd, the recognition that life, in the grand scheme of things, is meaningless. However, Camus doesn't suggest that we should fall into despair upon realizing the absurdity of life. Instead, he proposes what he calls the revolt against the absurd. This revolt is a conscious, deliberate response to the absurdity of existence. Camus argues that, while we cannot escape the meaninglessness of the universe, we can choose how we respond to it. Instead of succumbing to nihilism or despair, we can choose to live fully, to engage with life authentically, and to find joy in the very rebellion against the absurdity of existence. This revolt is not a form of passive resignation, but an active stance against the forces that seek to impose false meaning on our lives. Camus argues that we must refuse to accept easy answers or comfort in the face of the absurd. Instead, We must embrace the absurd, accept it as a part of our reality, and live in defiance of it. This involves acknowledging the lack of meaning and, rather than seeking external sources of purpose or validation, creating our own meaning through the way we live. Take, for example, a person who feels trapped in a soul-sucking job that seems to serve no higher purpose. This individual might feel a sense of emptiness, questioning why they continue to work and what the point of it all is. Camus would suggest that the person does not need to resign themselves to despair, but rather revolt against the absurdity of their situation by choosing to find meaning in their work. This might mean finding small moments of joy in their daily tasks, seeking personal fulfillment through creative expression, or simply refusing to let the absurdity of their circumstances define their experience. By embracing the absurd and choosing to live fully in the face of it, the individual can find their own meaning, even in a world that offers none by default. Camus' revolt against the absurd is also about living in the present moment, free from the distractions of future promises or past regrets. For many, the search for meaning is always tied to something beyond the present, whether it's the hope of a better future or the desire to leave a legacy. But for Camus, the key to finding meaning in life lies in the present, in embracing the here and now. By focusing on the present moment, we are able to connect with the fullness of life, free from the burden of worrying about what may come or what has already passed. This focus on the present is a form of rebellion against the absurdity of existence, as it requires us to fully engage with life, even when we know that it ultimately lacks inherent meaning. For example, consider someone who is grappling with a serious illness. The individual may find themselves faced with the harsh reality that their time is limited and the future is uncertain. In the face of this uncertainty, Camus would encourage the person to embrace the present moment, to find meaning in the relationships they have, in the beauty of nature, or in the simple pleasures of everyday life. Rather than focusing on the inevitability of death, the individual can find meaning by living authentically in the present, by choosing to engage with life fully, despite its impermanence. Camus' insistence on living authentically in the face of the absurd is one of the most significant contributions of his philosophy. Authenticity, for Camus, involves living in alignment with one's true self, without resorting to false justifications or external validation. This means accepting the absurdity of life and choosing to live fully in spite of it. Camus believed that by embracing our freedom and our ability to choose how we respond to the absurd, we can live more meaningful lives. We are not bound by external forces or societal expectations, but instead, we create meaning for ourselves through our choices and actions. In practice, living authentically involves recognizing the freedom we have to define our own values, even in the face of a world that offers no inherent meaning. It means rejecting the temptation to find solace in external sources of meaning, such as religion or societal norms, and instead embracing our ability to create meaning from within. This can be a difficult path, as it requires confronting the harsh realities of existence and the lack of ultimate answers. But for Camus, it is precisely through this confrontation that we can find true freedom and authenticity. Consider the example of an artist who faces constant criticism and rejection. In a world that often seeks to impose its own standards and expectations, the artist might struggle to find their place and their purpose. However, if they follow Camus' philosophy, they would reject the societal pressure to conform to certain ideals and instead embrace their own vision. By choosing to live authentically, the artist can find meaning in the act of creation itself, not in the recognition or validation from others. The process of creating art becomes meaningful, regardless of external outcomes, because it is an expression of the artist's true self, an act of rebellion against the absurd. Camus' notion of living authentically is also tied to the idea of personal freedom. It is not enough to simply acknowledge the absurdity of life. We must actively choose how we live in response to it. Personal freedom, for Camus, is the ability to make choices that reflect our true selves, free from the constraints of societal expectations or external influences. This freedom is not about escaping the absurd, but about fully engaging with it, about creating meaning in a world that offers none. Ultimately, Camus' absurdism is a call to embrace the reality of the absurd while also finding joy and meaning in the face of it. By rejecting false comforts and living authentically, we can find freedom and meaning in our lives, even in a world that offers no ultimate purpose. This revolt against the absurd, this commitment to live fully and authentically, is Camus' answer to the question of how to live in a meaningless world. By choosing to live with passion, purpose, and awareness, we can find our own meaning, even in the face of life's inherent absurdity. Existentialism, once a radical philosophical movement confined to intellectual circles in the 20th century, continues to have a profound influence on modern culture, art, and the way people navigate the complexities of contemporary life. The ideas introduced by Sartre, Camus, and other existential thinkers have left an indelible mark on literature, art, psychology, and even everyday decision-making. In the 21st century, existentialism has found new relevance, offering a powerful framework for understanding the modern human condition. It has become a tool for individuals to explore their sense of self, confront life's challenges, and embrace the freedom and responsibility that come with the pursuit of meaning in a world that often feels chaotic and uncertain. In contemporary literature and art, existentialist themes have remained central. Writers and artists still draw on the existentialist tradition to explore the complexities of human freedom, the search for meaning, and the inherent absurdity of life. In literature, existentialism has influenced a wide range of works, from the novels of Haruki Murakami to the plays of Samuel Beckett. Murakami, for example, often presents characters who are struggling with existential questions about identity, meaning, and the search for connection in an indifferent world. His characters are frequently depicted as wandering through life, disconnected from a clear sense of purpose, much like the protagonists in Sartre's or Camus' works. In Norwegian Wood, Murakami examines themes of alienation, loss, and the tension between freedom and responsibility, offering a modern reimagining of existentialist concerns. Similarly, Beckett's Waiting for Godot, a quintessential existential play, presents two characters, Vladimir and Estragon, who wait endlessly for someone who may never come, embodying the absurdity and meaninglessness of existence. The play captures the struggle to find purpose and the futility of human endeavor in a world that seems devoid of answers. Existentialism's impact is not limited to literature, but has also had a significant influence on the visual arts. The Surrealist movement, for example, emerged in the early 20th century as a response to the absurdity of modern life, and many of its leading figures were deeply influenced by existentialist thought. Artists like Salvador Dali and René Magritte explored themes of identity, perception, and the subconscious, questioning the nature of reality and the limitations of human understanding. Surrealism's dreamlike and often irrational imagery speaks to the existentialist concern with the fragmentation of meaning in a modern, mechanized world. The works of these artists are an exploration of the individual's search for significance in a universe that seems to resist easy answers. In contemporary art, existentialist themes continue to resonate. Modern artists often tackle issues of alienation, identity, and the absurdity of life in their works, questioning the meaning of existence in a postmodern world. For instance, installations by artists like Damien Hirst, which often explore themes of death, life, and existential uncertainty, echo existentialist concerns about the inevitability of mortality and the fragility of human existence. Hirst's famous piece, The Physical Impossibility of Death in the Mind of Someone Living, a shark preserved in formaldehyde, serves as a stark reminder of our own mortality and the uncertainty that surrounds it. Much like the existentialist idea that life is fleeting and ultimately meaningless, modern art, therefore, continues to engage with existentialist ideas by confronting viewers with the absurdity of existence and urging them to find meaning in the face of uncertainty. In the realm of modern psychology, existentialism has also played a crucial role in shaping contemporary therapeutic approaches. Existential psychology, pioneered by thinkers such as Rollo May and Viktor Frankl, applies existentialist principles to understand human behavior and mental health. Frankl's famous book Man's Search for Meaning draws heavily on existentialist thought, as he argues that even in the face of suffering and hardship, individuals can find meaning and purpose in life. Frankl's concept of logotherapy, which centers on the idea that the search for meaning is the primary motivation in life, has been influential in therapeutic settings. For Frankl, even in the most dire circumstances, such as his own time in Nazi concentration camps, humans retain the freedom to choose their response to suffering and can create meaning in their lives through that choice. This emphasis on personal responsibility and the search for meaning resonates deeply with existentialist ideas about freedom and the human capacity for self-creation. Existentialism's influence in modern life is not just limited to creative and psychological fields, but extends into how people face the most fundamental questions of existence. In a world that often feels disconnected and uncertain, existentialist thought offers a lens through which individuals can confront their own anxieties, depression, and sense of purposelessness. In the 21st century, existentialism has become a practical philosophy for navigating the existential crises that many people face today, particularly in a world that sometimes feels overwhelmed by global challenges, economic instability, and social fragmentation. One of the most significant applications of existentialism in modern life is its approach to mental health. In an era where rates of anxiety and depression are rising, existentialism offers a framework for understanding and addressing these issues. Existential anxiety, according to existentialist psychologists like Irvin Yalom, arises from the awareness of one's freedom, the inevitability of death, and the fundamental uncertainty of life. This anxiety is not inherently pathological, but rather a natural byproduct of human existence. It is the existential awareness of our own freedom, responsibility, and mortality that often creates the feeling of being overwhelmed. Rather than avoiding or repressing this anxiety, existentialism encourages individuals to confront it, to accept it as part of the human condition, and to use it as a source of motivation for living more authentically. For example, consider a person struggling with existential anxiety due to the uncertainty of the future. Perhaps they feel lost in a world that offers no clear direction or meaning. Sartre's idea that existence precedes essence would suggest that the individual is free to create their own purpose, even in the face of uncertainty. By taking responsibility for their choices and embracing their freedom, they can begin to build a life that reflects their true desires and values. Similarly, Camus' notion of revolt against the absurd offers a way to find meaning in the face of life's inherent meaninglessness. Even in the face of uncertainty, individuals can choose to live authentically, creating meaning in their everyday actions rather than waiting for some external force to provide it. In the context of depression, existentialism provides a unique way of understanding the condition. Depression, often characterized by a sense of hopelessness and disconnection from meaning, can be seen as an existential crisis, an overwhelming confrontation with the absence of purpose. While traditional approaches to depression may focus on alleviating symptoms through medication or therapy, existentialist therapy encourages individuals to explore the underlying existential questions that may contribute to their depression. It emphasizes the importance of finding personal meaning and purpose, rather than relying on external sources of happiness. In this way, existentialism offers a path toward healing that is rooted in self-discovery responsibility, and the embrace of freedom. Another application of existentialism in modern life is its emphasis on self-discovery and personal growth. In a world filled with distractions, pressures, and societal expectations, existentialism offers a way to reconnect with one's true self. The existential journey of self-discovery is about acknowledging one's freedom, taking responsibility for one's actions, and creating meaning in life. It involves a deep exploration of one's values, desires, and goals, and a willingness to confront the discomfort and uncertainty that often arise in this process. In practical terms, existential self-discovery might involve reassessing one's career, relationships, or lifestyle choices. For example, someone might feel trapped in a job that does not align with their true passions or values. Existentialism encourages that person to recognize their freedom to choose a different path, even if that choice is difficult or uncertain. It's about confronting the fear and anxiety that may come with the decision to change, and embracing the responsibility that comes with taking control of one's own life. Self-discovery also involves embracing the idea that life's meaning is not fixed or predetermined. It is a dynamic process of creating meaning through action, choice, and personal reflection, rather than waiting for meaning to be handed down by society, religion, or external authority. Existentialism encourages individuals to define their own purpose and find fulfillment in the process of living authentically. This emphasis on personal freedom and responsibility is central to existentialist thought and remains one of its most relevant applications in modern life. In conclusion, existentialism continues to offer valuable insights into how we understand and navigate the complexities of modern life. Its influence on contemporary literature, art, and psychology provides a rich source of inspiration for understanding the human condition. The existentialist emphasis on freedom, responsibility, and authenticity offers a framework for dealing with anxiety, depression, and the search for meaning in a world that often feels chaotic and uncertain. Through the existential journey of self-discovery, individuals are empowered to create their own meaning and purpose, even in the face of life's inherent absurdity. By embracing existentialism, people can find a path to personal growth, fulfillment, and a deeper understanding of themselves and the world around them. Existentialism, as a philosophy, offers more than just abstract concepts. It provides a framework for understanding and navigating the daily struggles of life. The philosophy's core tenets: freedom, responsibility, the absurdity of existence, and the search for meaning are not just theoretical ideas, but practical tools that individuals can use to make sense of their own experiences. By applying existentialist ideas to real-life situations, people can navigate the challenges of modern existence with a deeper understanding of their own freedom, choices, and purpose. These ideas resonate deeply in today's world, where many face uncertainty, confusion, and a search for meaning in an often indifferent or chaotic universe. Real-life examples of existentialism in practice can be found in countless stories of individuals who confront life's inherent uncertainty, make difficult choices, and struggle to create meaning out of seemingly meaningless circumstances. These examples show how existentialist thought can be applied to everyday life, offering people ways to deal with personal crises, find purpose, and live authentically. Take the example of a young professional stuck in a job that does not bring them fulfillment or satisfaction. The person is working in a corporate environment, performing repetitive tasks, and feeling increasingly alienated from the work they do. They find themselves asking, "What is the point of all this? Why am I doing something that doesn't make me happy?" This scenario is one that many people face today, as they feel trapped in a cycle of work and responsibilities that doesn't align with their passions or values. From an existentialist perspective, the key to navigating this situation lies in understanding Sartre's concept that existence precedes essence. The individual is not defined by their job, their career path, or the expectations imposed on them by society or family. They have the freedom to choose a different path. However, this freedom comes with the responsibility to make choices that reflect their true desires and values. Instead of simply resigning themselves to the status quo, the individual must confront their freedom and take responsibility for the life they are living. By recognizing that they have the power to redefine their career path, they can begin to explore new opportunities, pursue passions, or take steps toward a more fulfilling life. The challenge lies not in finding an external source of meaning, but in creating that meaning through conscious action and self-reflection. Another real-life example can be seen in the story of a person facing a serious illness. The diagnosis of a life-threatening condition can be a profound existential crisis, forcing the individual to confront their own mortality and the fleeting nature of life. In this situation, existentialism offers a powerful framework for understanding how to find meaning despite the inevitability of death. Camus' concept of the absurd comes into play here. Life's meaninglessness does not need to lead to despair. Instead, it can be an invitation to live fully and authentically in the present moment. This individual, upon receiving their diagnosis, may initially feel overwhelmed by fear and uncertainty. However, by embracing the absurd, they may come to terms with the fact that life is temporary and unpredictable. And rather than focusing on the inevitability of death, they can focus on living fully in the present. This might mean spending more time with loved ones, pursuing dreams that were put on hold, or finding joy in small, everyday moments. The existentialist response here is not to avoid the reality of death, but to embrace it as a part of life and to create meaning through how one chooses to live in the time they have. Existentialism can also be seen in the lives of individuals who confront oppressive societal or cultural structures. Take the example of someone living in a restrictive society that imposes rigid expectations on gender, race, or social class. In many parts of the world, people still face discrimination or limitations based on their identity, and the pressure to conform can be immense. However, existentialism offers a powerful response to this. It encourages individuals to reject the societal constraints that define who they are supposed to be and instead embrace their freedom to create their own identity. By living authentically, individuals can challenge the roles that society tries to impose on them, breaking free from the constraints of their culture or upbringing. Consider the story of an individual from a conservative background who decides to pursue a career in the arts, despite the disapproval of their family. The pressure to conform to traditional expectations, perhaps to become a doctor, lawyer, or engineer, feels overwhelming. However, this person, guided by existentialist principles, realizes that they are free to make their own choices and create meaning in their own life, regardless of the opinions of others. They embrace the responsibility of living authentically, choosing to follow their passion for the arts, and accepting the consequences of that decision. This pursuit of authenticity in the face of external expectations is a direct application of existentialist thought, particularly the idea that we are not defined by external forces, but by our own choices and actions. Existentialism also provides a lens through which we can understand individuals who experience profound personal loss. The death of a loved one, the end of a relationship, or the loss of a meaningful career can create a sense of emptiness and despair. In these situations, existentialism encourages individuals to confront their grief and the absence of meaning that follows loss. Instead of looking for external sources of meaning to fill the void, existentialism teaches that meaning must be created from within. This might involve accepting the reality of loss, acknowledging the pain and emptiness it brings, but then using that experience to redefine one's purpose and direction in life. For instance, someone who has lost a spouse may initially feel consumed by sadness and uncertainty. However, through the existential lens, they can choose to find meaning in the love they shared, in the lessons they learned, and in the ways they can continue to live a meaningful life, even in the face of tragedy. This approach highlights the existential idea that life's meaning is not given to us, but must be created through our choices, actions, and responses to adversity. In each of these examples, existentialism provides a framework for confronting the challenges of life, from the pursuit of meaningful work to the acceptance of mortality and the embrace of personal freedom. It encourages individuals to take responsibility for their choices and to recognize that meaning is something they create, not something handed down from society, religion, or external authorities. The existentialist approach to life is not about escaping hardship, but rather about embracing it fully and finding ways to live authentically in spite of life's inherent struggles. Personal reflections from individuals who have embraced existentialist thought often reveal how this philosophy has helped them navigate difficult life circumstances. Many people who have turned to existentialism find that it offers a sense of empowerment, helping them to make choices that reflect their true selves, even when the world around them may be filled with uncertainty and pressure. One person, for example, might reflect on how existentialist principles help them overcome feelings of alienation and purposelessness. By realizing that they are not bound by societal expectations or external definitions of success, they were able to free themselves from the constraints of conventional life and pursue a career that brought them joy and fulfillment. Another person might reflect on how existentialism helped them confront the existential crisis they experienced after losing a loved one. By accepting the reality of their grief and the absurdity of life's impermanence, they found the strength to move forward and build new meaning in their life. This process of self-discovery and growth, facilitated by existentialist thought, allowed them to live more authentically and appreciate the beauty of life, despite its inevitable struggles. These personal reflections highlight the transformative power of existentialism in real life. Far from being a dry, abstract philosophy, existentialism provides individuals with the tools to confront the most fundamental questions of existence. It encourages people to embrace their freedom, take responsibility for their actions, and create meaning in their lives through authentic choices. Whether in the face of existential anxiety, grief, personal crisis, or societal pressure, existentialism offers a framework for living a life that is both meaningful and true to oneself. By embracing the freedom to choose, the responsibility to act, and the courage to live authentically, individuals can navigate the complexities of modern life with a deeper understanding of themselves and the world around them. The philosophy of existentialism is not about finding easy answers, but about embracing the journey of self-discovery, finding purpose in the midst of uncertainty, and creating a life that reflects one's true essence. These stories of real-life existential struggles and triumphs demonstrate that, no matter how absurd or uncertain life may seem, we have the power to define our own meaning and live fully in the present. The journey of self-discovery is one of the most profound experiences that individuals can undertake, and existentialism offers a roadmap for navigating it. At its core, existentialism challenges us to confront the inherent uncertainty and meaninglessness of life, urging us to embrace the freedom and responsibility that come with being human. While many philosophies provide fixed answers or doctrines, existentialism encourages an ongoing process of self-exploration and questioning, emphasizing that meaning is not something we passively receive, but something we actively create through our choices and actions. One of the most powerful aspects of existentialism is its focus on freedom. Sartre's famous idea that existence precedes essence highlights the radical freedom we all possess to shape our own lives. We're not born with a predefined purpose or essence. Instead, we are free to create meaning through our choices. This freedom can be both liberating and daunting. On one hand, it offers the possibility to live an authentic life that reflects our true values and desires. On the other hand, it brings with it the weight of responsibility, If we are free to choose, we are also responsible for the consequences of our choices. This freedom is not a simple escape from societal constraints, but a profound realization that ultimately, we are the creators of our own essence. The responsibility that comes with freedom is not an abstract concept. It is something that we feel every day in the choices we make, from the smallest decisions to the most significant life-altering ones. Every time we decide what career to pursue, whom to love, or how to spend our time, we are exercising our freedom. But with this freedom comes the responsibility to make choices that are true to ourselves, to act in ways that align with our values, and to accept the consequences of those actions. In this sense, existentialism is not about fleeing responsibility, but about fully embracing it and understanding that the meaning of our lives is defined by the choices we make. Take, for example, the decision to pursue a career in a field that truly excites us, despite the pressure to follow a more conventional or financially secure path. This is a decision that requires embracing the freedom to follow our passion rather than conform to societal expectations. But it also comes with responsibility. The responsibility to take ownership of our career path, to put in the effort required to succeed, and to accept the risks and challenges that come with stepping off the beaten path. By making this choice, we are actively creating meaning in our lives, rather than simply adhering to a predefined script. The fulfillment we gain from living authentically, from making choices that reflect our true selves, is one of the most powerful sources of meaning that existentialism offers. Existentialism also teaches us that the search for meaning is an ongoing process. There is no single, final destination in life, no ultimate answer that will bring all our questions to rest. Rather, life is a journey, an ongoing exploration of who we are and what we value. This process of self-questioning and self-exploration is not a one-time event, but a continuous challenge. As we grow and evolve, our understanding of ourselves and our place in the world changes. This is the essence of existential thought. That meaning is not fixed, but must be actively created and recreated over time. In practical terms, this means that the process of self-discovery is never fully complete. There is no final answer to the question of who we are, because we are always evolving, always changing. The existential journey is one of constant exploration, of questioning the assumptions we make about ourselves, the world, and our place within it. It is about accepting the uncertainty and ambiguity of life and finding meaning in the process of becoming, rather than in any fixed destination. Consider the example of someone who, after years of working in a corporate job, begins to question whether that career is truly aligned with their passions. This questioning is not a sign of failure or confusion, but a necessary part of the existential journey. By asking themselves whether their work reflects their true values, they're engaging in the kind of self-reflection that existentialism encourages. Perhaps they decide to change careers, pursue a passion project, or take a sabbatical to explore new interests. The process of self-discovery does not have a clear endpoint. Instead, it is about remaining open to new possibilities, challenging our own assumptions, and making choices that reflect the evolving nature of who we are. This ongoing process of self-questioning also means that existentialism does not provide easy answers to life's toughest questions. There are no simple solutions or one-size-fits-all paths to meaning. Instead, existentialism asks us to confront the complexity and uncertainty of life head-on and to find meaning in the very act of questioning. For instance, when we face difficult decisions or moments of doubt, existentialism encourages us to explore the underlying questions of identity, values, and purpose. It asks us to embrace the discomfort that comes with uncertainty and to use that discomfort as a source of growth and self-discovery. The power of existentialism lies in its ability to empower individuals to create their own meaning. Rather than waiting for external validation or direction, existentialism teaches that we have the freedom to shape our lives according to our own desires and values. This is not a philosophy of passivity or resignation, but one of active engagement with the world. It encourages us to take responsibility for our lives, to make choices that reflect who we are, and to accept the consequences of those choices. At its core, existentialism is about reclaiming our agency. In a world that often feels out of control, where we are bombarded with external expectations and societal pressures, existentialism offers a path to self-empowerment. By recognizing that we have the freedom to choose, we can begin to create meaning in our own lives, regardless of external circumstances. This freedom is not just about making grand, life-changing decisions. It is about the small, everyday choices that define who we are. Each time we act authentically, each time we make a decision that reflects our true selves, we are creating meaning. The power of choice is central to the existentialist view of life. It is the recognition that we are not merely products of our environment or the result of external forces, but that we are active participants in shaping our own destiny. Even in the most difficult circumstances, we still have the power to choose how we respond. For instance, in the face of a personal setback or a major challenge, existentialism teaches that we have the freedom to choose how we interpret and respond to those experiences. We can choose to view adversity as an opportunity for growth, to find meaning in struggle, and to use our experiences to become more fully ourselves. Take, for example, someone who has experienced a major failure in their career. While it's natural to feel disappointed and discouraged, existentialism encourages us to view failure not as a final judgment on our worth, but as part of the ongoing process of self-discovery. By choosing to learn from the experience, to reflect on what it teaches us about our desires, our strengths, and our weaknesses, we can turn a negative experience into a meaningful part of our personal journey. In this sense, even setbacks become opportunities to exercise our freedom and to take responsibility for creating meaning in our lives. Ultimately, the existentialist journey is one of empowerment. It is about taking ownership of our lives, making choices that reflect our authentic selves, and creating meaning from within. By embracing freedom and responsibility, we can live more meaningful, fulfilling lives, regardless of the uncertainties or challenges we face. The power to create meaning lies within us, and it is through our choices, actions, and self-reflection that we shape our own existence. Existentialism, in the end, teaches that life is not about waiting for external forces to provide meaning, but about actively engaging in the process of self-discovery, choice, and creation. It is a philosophy of freedom to choose, to act, and to create meaning. Through this freedom, we find the strength to navigate life's challenges, to question our assumptions, and to live authentically. By embracing the journey of self-discovery, we create lives that are meaningful not because they are guided by some external purpose, but because we have chosen to make them so. And there you have it, existentialism in all its depth and complexity, yet surprisingly empowering when you begin to apply its principles to your own life. As we've explored today, existentialism isn't about despair or wallowing in the meaninglessness of life. Rather, it's about embracing that meaninglessness and using it as fuel for creating something uniquely our own. The idea that existence precedes essence means that you are free to create the essence of who you are, to define your purpose, and to live authentically without the constraints of societal expectations. By embracing the burden of freedom, taking responsibility for your choices, and finding meaning in the absurdity of life, you can carve your own path and live a life that is truly yours. It's not always an easy journey, but the rewards of living authentically, knowing you are free to choose and create meaning, are worth it. Whether it's in the way you approach your career, your relationships, or your personal growth, existentialism gives you the tools to understand yourself better and to live with intention. If you found this video helpful or thought-provoking, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. How do you apply existentialist principles in your life? Are there areas where you're struggling to embrace freedom or responsibility. Let's keep the conversation going, because existentialism is a journey, not a destination, and every conversation helps us grow. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. Your support is what allows me to create more videos like this that dive deep into powerful philosophical ideas. And for those of you who want to contribute even more to the channel, please consider hitting the super thanks button. Every little bit helps to keep this content going strong, and I can't thank you enough for your support. Until next time, remember life is a journey, not a destination, and it's up to you to define the meaning of your existence. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep living authentically. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.